if you can now resume us, if you can please put your camera on. Thank you, sir. So the other two guests will be joining us in a little while. So
Okay.
without wasting much of the time, we would like to start on time for the program, so that we do not fall short of your session with respect to time.
Yeah, correct.
So thank you, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very warm good morning. I, Achna Malhotra, on my personal behalf and on behalf of ITSC Education Group, welcome you all to this virtual summit on emerging technologies shaping the future of business with blockchain and fintech. Today, we are really honored to have our eminent expert, Mr. Amanjot Malhotra, Director of Product Management at LCX, Liechtenstein Crypto Assets Exchange. We will be also having other two guests who will be joining us shortly, as I already mentioned to you, Mr. Atul Tripathi, data scientist at Former National Security, and Dr. Sindhu Bhaskar, Chairman and CEO of ESG Group. Our Director Management will be also joining us in a little while. Now, as each one of us as understand that amid COVID-19, words and phrases such as disruption, revitalizing, and digital transformation have become so compliant in the context of financial services that they have lost their impact. However, impact is exactly where we are heading with emerging technologies. The finance world is changing rapidly day by day, and unless you have a financial education, you are likely not to speed on the fintech developments that are shaping the global economy's financial future. So that won't necessarily prelude you from managing your money well or investing successfully. But as fintech is shaping the global banking industry, it is worthwhile to understand the ultimate fintech and blockchain. So today's summit will focus on some key areas like overview of blockchain technology and its application, current trends in blockchain. For students, interesting would be career opportunities in blockchain for management, overview of fintech and issues and challenges in its application in India, and current trends in career growth in fintech technology. So all these areas seem to be very burning and very interesting for all of us to explore further. So I would not take much time, and I would like now to introduce you all to our first eminent and expert guest with us, Mr. Amanjot Malhotra. Sir has enjoyed leading multiple startups throughout his career in the field of finance, education, events. His key responsibility areas have been product management, product marketing, designing, and strategy. His professional skills include strategic planning, product management, team development, agile development, product analytics, market and pricing analysis, product roadmap, business development, SaaS, and marketplace platforms. Sir has done his BTech with materials engineering from IIT Roorkee, and he has learned fintech from Barclays Rise Masterclass and with blockchain technology by Berkeley University of California. Before LCX, has worked with companies like Activate and as a founder with product specialist Delhi Angels as vice president. So with these words, I would once again welcome Mr. Amanjot Malhotra and would request sir to share his words of wisdom with the audience today. So over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Yachna. Um, I'm really happy to be here. And so I think we are really short on time, to be very honest, if we are touching the topic. So I'll keep it very, very straightforward. I'll not waste any amount of time. I'll tell you a bit about my career journey, also how you all can also come into the sector of fintech and blockchain. And I'll tell you something like very easy steps how you can do the transition, because people are overwhelmed how we can get into it, where to start, and what all things to do. So but it's not that complicated, it's basically simple. And I also will not venture into technical details, so if I skip something, I have a presentation prepared, so if I skip something, so that that's not relevant for you at the moment, because it cannot be covered in such short time. So I will keep it very brief. I'll keep it to business. I'll not go into tech, how blockchain works, because that's a very long uh, learning curve, I would say. And you can do that in your own time. So without wasting any time, let me get started with the presentation. Let me share my screen. I'll go hand in hand with the presentation. So I prepared a small presentation about blockchain and its use cases. And as we proceed with the presentation, you will learn how blockchain has evolved over the past 10 years now. And then if I talk about this year, then this year is actually very, very special for crypto also, because Bitcoin touched all time high and all these things which are happening. So I'm more on the crypto side, a little bit less on the blockchain side. So it's a different thing. So I'll explain the differences, how it is. So introduction to blockchain and its use cases, why blockchain is being considered the future of fintech. Um, I lastly was working with Activate, and my company got acquired by my client. And then I was looking to venture into fintech. Before that, I had no idea about fintech. I was not working with fintech startups at all. This all happened in 2018. And then when I was exploring fintech, I realized that, in India, fintech is happening. But if I talk about at global level, then blockchain is actually much more advanced than what is happening in India. So if I talk about cross-border payments, we haven't even thought about that, which is so easy to be done with blockchain. You can easily send money to somebody living in UK or Canada with the help of blockchain, but you can't do it with the help of Paytm. Paytm is restricted. So all these things made me realize that it's time that you start investing in the future, start learning something which is futuristic, so that you are well prepared about the future. And I think this is the whole agenda of today's session also, that we prepare well for the future. Okay, so getting started, our agenda is going to be blockchain trend. I will explain something about blockchain, its use cases, implementation, the challenges that the industry is facing at the moment, and then the takeaways. I'll be focusing a lot on Q and A's, because I feel like that's the most important part for you at the moment, and then that will be really helpful for you in uh, carving your career. So if looking at the graph, see what has happened in the past decade is that blockchain, if you look at the blue curve, has picked up. So if you look at the curve, it's actually like, it's not a linear curve, it's an exponential curve. So which suggests that it is having an exponential growth. So that's why this has to be taken very seriously, as compared to the industries like cloud computing and SaaS, which have been almost stagnated. Like SaaS, there are so many SaaS companies which have come out of India. It can be Zoho, it can be Fresh Team, all these companies which are doing really, really well in the global stage. But if I look at future, then I would definitely say that blockchain as a technology, or as a transformation, is going to the future. So that is why you should be thinking, learning, and investing in blockchain. Blockchain by numbers, then if I talk about just one number, then in 2016 the market size of blockchain was 1.4 billion dollars, and now by 2022, next year, you can expect the overall business that is being done on blockchain will be $10 billion. So it's an exponential rise, it's not a linear rise, and blockchain was just introduced in 2009. If I tell you briefly about how blockchain came into picture, the world was, it actually came into picture after the financial crisis. So if anybody has followed the 2008 financial crisis, there were so many banks which went bankrupt and the money was lost. And there were people crying about that, why, how could this happen? And this happened because it was a centralized organization. So there was a demand by the community that we need transparency in the banking system. For example, if I talk about right now, you have your savings bank in SBI, in Punjab and Sindh Bank, in all these banks uh, that we have in India, and we already have a case of PMC. You have that savings bank, but if you know the concept of repo rate, you don't know where the money is going, and the people in the banks are controlling the money. So that was the reason why, and the crisis was the reason why there was a demand that there should be transparency brought into the system, and it should be made decentralized. So every decision is being shared by everyone, every stakeholder in the network. And I'll use this word network a lot because blockchain is basically a network. So let's talk about blockchain. Like, um, So, Yashna ma'am, how can I do a Q&A right now? It's like it's possible that I ask people that how many of them have done any course on blockchain or learned about blockchain.
Sure, sir. We can.
Okay, but I think it will take time. It will take more time if I ask.
Sir, generally that's the reason that we keep Q&A towards the end,
Okay,
and I'll be taking up their questions from the chat box.
all
So
right,
as one is we are not very sure about the technologies, it can give a challenge any point of time. So we want to make it little comfortable for everyone.
all right. Got it. I'll explain blockchain in a very normal way. Let's say we are right now 100 people in this Zoom call, and then I transferred something to Yachna ma'am, right? And you all observed. So you are basically the jury. Okay. Okay. So there is a transaction happened between me and Yachna ma'am. I am basically the sender and she is the receiver. So there is a transaction happened. So you all have observed the transaction. So if I talk about blockchain, what happens is basically uh, we both are basically transacting and then you are the validators. So whosoever is looking at the transaction is a validator. And how it works is basically, let's say I'm sending 1 Bitcoin to Yashna ma'am. Okay. And the transaction is being validated by 50 people. So a small fees is being given to those people to do the validation. And the validation is done by proof of work. And that is basically solving a mathematical problem. So that's how a transaction is uh, completed. And then the transaction is stored in a database. Okay. So why this is a unique way of doing things is because if you bring 50 people who are observing a transaction, then it is very difficult for having a fraud. For example, tomorrow, let's say Yashna ma'am says that I did not receive the money, right? But there are 50 people who have observed the transaction and they can say that you have received the money. So that's the use of blockchain, and it's a network. And the network is basically you have point A and point B who are transacting, but there are millions of other nodes which are validating that transaction. That's the whole blockchain network and the advantage of blockchain network. So in order to reverse this transaction, in order to reverse, or you can say that uh, to prove that the transaction has not happened, you have to have the majority, which is 51% of nodes or the validators saying that yes, this transaction did not happen. And you will have to probably in a way bribe them to say this, otherwise it's impossible to do this. And the best part here is that you don't even know the identity of these nodes in blockchain network. Right now we all know each other, but if I talk about an international network, then we just have an ID. The ID can be a 20-digit alphanumeric uh, number, which is basically a wallet. And you will never know an identity of any person. So you will have, if you do not know the identity of any person, you cannot buy anybody out. So this is how blockchain works. If I simplify it in terms of the use case in general terms, like how to validate transactions. So right now the transactions are validated by centralized institutions. Let's say I am sending 100 rupees from Paytm, my wallet, to somebody else's wallet. Okay, so that Paytm is validating that. If there is an issue with the Paytm servers, then the transaction can be faulted. Okay, because the validator is only one, which is a very powerful validator, which is a centralized institute. So you should remember these keywords: centralized organizations, validators, right? So the transaction is being validated by a centralized organization, which is a big organization. But if that big organization fails, and we have already seen that this year, Google failed because of traffic, there were so many other falters that happened. Facebook went down, WhatsApp went down for a while. There were all the organizations went down. So what will happen in that case? There is no other alternative because everything depends on that. On the contrary, if I talk about blockchain, if one validator is not able to validate the transaction, there are millions of other validators. And it's basically consensus via which the validation is happening. So it's not happening with one powerful validator, it's happening with the consensus of 51% of validators. So that is why Bitcoin is considered to be safe and tamper proof. And that is why the governments also are trusting blockchain, because they understand that if a transaction has happened, And if I talk about transaction, then transaction is a general term here. It can be anything. It does not mean monetary transaction. It can be any other transaction also. For example, you purchased a real estate property, or you're owning a real estate property, you invested in mutual funds, you bought a stock, right? So for example, you're buying stock right now from any uh, these demat accounts, these all these accounts. But if they falter, if they, let's say, shut down, then you're dependent on them. But this does not happen in blockchain. That's why blockchain is tamper proof, because it's very difficult to have a reverse 51% maturity, to buy out the 51% maturity. And we also call blockchain as trustless trust, because if you think from this perspective, you do not know anybody, but you trust the system. How do we define trust right now? We define trust that, I know that person, I've been seeing that person for the past 10 years, 20 years, and I know that how that he or she behaves in life. But here you do not know, not even know the name, location, or anything about that person. But still, the structure, the infrastructure of the network is such that you can trust the network, because it cannot falter, because most of the people will validate for the right thing. So I hope I'm able to explain blockchain in a very normalized way, how blockchain works. And it's not dependent on any central entity, it's dependent on multiple decentralized entities, and their identities are hidden. So in that way, it's very difficult to tamper with the network, tamper with the blockchain, and the transactions keep on happening. Okay, so this is about blockchain, how a blockchain works. And I'm actually skipping this part, because if I go by the presentation, then it will be a bit complicated. Okay, so summarizing, blockchain is a database. It's decentralized, so the entries which are done to the database are immutable, as I told you, because the network keeps on moving and it keeps on validating by the network. And it's the parties to which parties trust because of distributed consensus protocol. So the protocol says that, if out of 10 people, people say that the transaction has happened, then the transaction has happened, and they get the reward for it. Simple. And that's how blockchain works. It is achieved by a network of trusted participants. It's actually a very, very important point. So you don't need to trust each other. It can still, the trust of the network can be maintained. And it is secured by cryptographic work, which is done by these nodes, which are called validators. So this is again how a centralized ledger work, which I told you that, when let's say I'm sending one payment from India to UK, let's say I'm sending it to Barclays Bank in UK from ICICI Bank, then these banks will communicate intermittently with each other banks, and then there is a centralized ledger which will maintain all the entries. But if I talk about blockchain, then I do not need to work with these banks. I'll send it to an address which is in UK, and there will be validators all over the world which will validate the transaction. And these are basically validators, and this is the copy of ledger. Ledger is basically where you are hosting the database, or you can say the database, and every validator has the copy of the ledger at all the time. So if somebody has an old copy, it will not work. They will have to update and copy. The moment they are connected to the network, they will have an updated ledger. So this is how it works. This is the centralized system where only there is one flow, but in a decentralized system, there are multiple flows coming to a central point and coming to a consensus about a transaction. So that's the difference. Okay, moving on. Okay. Blockchain implementation and its use cases. I think this is something which is a lot useful for you guys. And so blockchain ecosystem has evolved in a lot of ways, which we already have. Like, we have the fintech ecosystem, and then we have the blockchain ecosystem. So it's basically a subset of the whole fintech ecosystem. Okay. And we have very similar products coming on blockchain. For example, we have exchanges, we have investments done, we have wallets. Wallets are basically said, so we have Paytm wallet. In the same way, we have a blockchain wallet. So in Paytm, you can transact with Paytm wallets, or you can interact with UPI. But again, UPI is limited to only Indian numbers and Indian people. But in blockchain, you can actually transact across the world. So it doesn't matter if the person is in Japan, South Africa, or South America, Brazil, anything. Like you can transact anywhere. So let me start. So we have brokerage firms, we have exchanges. Exchanges is where you trade between multiple cryptocurrencies. We have soft wallets, we have hard wallets. Let me explain the difference. So soft wallets are basically hot wallets which are connected to the internet. Okay, so when you're connected to the system, when you're connected to the network, it's called a hot wallet. And when you're not connected to the system, it's called a cold wallet. If I explain it in a very simplified way, imagine a USB drive. If it's connected to your system, if it's connected to your computer, you're able to access it, you're able to access the data. I will call that USB drive as a hot wallet. And let's say I just removed it from the computer. Now you can't see the data, you can't access the data. I will call it a cold wallet. And let's say I replace data with cryptocurrencies in it. If I replace that, then that USB drive becomes a wallet. Okay. So generally, hot wallets are software products, apps, like you have an application like Paytm. Hardware wallets are basically hardware devices which actually require authentication for the payments. Okay. I hope you understand. If you have any questions, I'll take it in the QA session. Next, moving on, we have investments. So like we have VCs like Sequoia, Safe Partners, Matrix Partners. In the same way, there are investment partners, investment companies which are investing in blockchain companies. And these are dedicatedly blockchain investment companies because they understand the token economics, the economics, how a blockchain company works. It's kind of different from a fintech company. Fintech companies have equities, blockchain companies have tokens. Then you have merchants. Uh, Merchants are basically in between mediators. They connect each other products. You have compliance. So if the government where the blockchain company is registered has the requirement that you have to follow some compliance, you have to follow KYC and AML practices, then there are compliance companies. Then there are trading platforms. Trading platforms are actually built over exchanges. So like for example, if you're doing quant trading, if you are doing algo trading, then you need these trading platforms. But these are basically advanced level platforms where you trade. Capital markets, again, investing in it, investing in cryptocurrencies. Money services are basically uh, providing services like OTC services. There are multiple other services which are being provided. Like if you want to buy in bulk or invest in bulk and then transfer money or do fiat to crypto. For example, you have INR with you and you want to buy Bitcoin. How will you do that? So these are basically money services. Then you have banks which are also providing these services. So banks are also coming into blockchain crypto sector because they do not want to lose out on the market size. So that's again a big market opening coming in the next few years. Then you have ATM providers also. So they have physical ATMs where you just go with your card and you can withdraw crypto, or you can do transactions with crypto, or you can withdraw fiat money. For example, you are carrying Bitcoin. The use case here is basically I'm traveling to UK and I'm not carrying so generally we carry USD pounds or INR with us and we get it converted on a exchange. But then again, carrying cash is risky. Like if you're carrying more than 20,000, 30,000, or 50,000, you will not carry. And then they also have problem, the customs. So what you can do is you can actually convert it into Bitcoin. You can go there, go to an ATM and get it converted to pounds or INR, whatever you need there. So these are also coming up. I'm not sure about the success of ATMs here. um, Payroll and insurance. So there are the insurance sector is also coming up. There was multiple hacks in the sector due to which customers require that, we want our investments, our assets to be insured. So there are insurance companies coming in. Payments company are again uh, doing conversions between fiat to crypto. And trade finance. So trade finance is again, giving out money to trade. They are financing the trades. So there are different kind of hedge funds coming into this picture. Infrastructure and base protocols. Bitcoin again is a protocol. Ripple, probably you must have heard about Ripple. It's again a protocol. And then you have miners. Miners are basically validators. So this term actually became very famous in China, Bitcoin mining, because there were a lot of miners in China. There were farms which were mining, farms of basically computers which were mining the whole transactions. And the more miners you have, the faster the network moves, because the more people are validating the transaction. This is how it works. And the more people you have in the network, the less fees you have to pay, because more and more people are fighting for a small fees in the network. So if you understand, it's basically supply demand. So uh, you know I hope you understand. Middleware services, smart contract preparers, like people who are preparing smart contracts. Then there are other platforms which are basically discovery platforms for crypto. Then there are API providers. So like, for example, if I need data, past 3 years data, then these are API providers. General APIs are again very similar to them. And then software development is basically where people are setting up companies and doing dedicated blockchain software development. And services can be marketing, it can be business development services, it can be any kind of some services. So this is the whole blockchain ecosystem for financial services. What you can take away from this is basically there are some aspects here which are technical, like the wallet aspect, the trading aspect, but rest of the things are quite similar uh, to the fintech world. It's basically trading, it's buying, investing, all these things are very, very similar. It's just that you need to learn the dynamics of the blockchain ecosystem so that you are able to uh, become a part of the ecosystem. Okay. And then I'm moving on from this. I'm going to skip this. This is different. Okay, let's talk about blockchain implementations and where all it can be implemented, how it can be implemented, how, for example, we already have these sectors. We have supply chain, we have payments, manufacturing, everything, like where all it can be done. Okay, so let's start with blockchain for a liquid democracy. It's actually very, very important. A couple of days back only, we saw that, Trump supporters marching on the Capitol. So, the democracy is actually under threat right now. And so, just imagine if we can bring all the voters. And the biggest problem I think in India is that not everyone votes. So blockchain can change this. How it can change this is basically if we can bring every voter on a network and then they can vote, right? It's actually being done right now. People are working on this concept. It's just that it has to be accepted by the government. But governments are not very happy about this technology because this takes out the control out of the government. So, for example, if I'm paying somebody to UK, if I'm doing any transaction, I'm not paying any tax right now. So governments are very cynical about this technology. That's why they do not want to do this. But the concept of liquid democracy can be implemented. It's basically you create a blockchain network, and then everyone can vote for whom they want to vote, and it will be kept private, and only the network can see it. So you don't have to disclose whom you voted and disclose your identity. So that's like one of the best ways. We kind of shy away from taking our decisions because we want to sometimes be a part of a social circle. So this is one big use case for the world. Let's talk about supply chain. So whatever we if I talk about today, then we are definitely tracking a lot of things which are being produced and supplied to us. But 20 years back, you had no idea where this product is coming from, how this product was produced, all these things. So if we bring blockchain to the supply chain, then it will provide ability to track and trace any operation run in the entire supply chain of a product. Okay, how it can do that? If at every step you will have a validation, and the validation will go to the network, and that network will have all the trace. So you can trace everything from inception to the delivery of the product, which will detect frauds. The frauds which are happening, let's say for example, in there was a fraud happening in Flipkart, then people were say the sellers were sending some bricked things, or all these things instead of a phone. All these things can be avoided and traced back to the seller and where the problem happened. So there will be no counterfeits, and there is no slavery use. So like for example, we live in a country where I think slavery is not there, but if I talk about Africa, then there is a lot of slavery problem right now. So, and if I talk about US and European regions, they're very conscious about that. There are no slaves being used in this manufacturing process. So I think everyone must have seen the movie Blood Diamond. So in that you see the whole supply chain of how diamonds are discovered in Africa, and then they are supplied to United States, and then what's the life of the slaves or the discoverers or people who work in those conditions. Okay, so in this way it can be implemented to everywhere. Like we we have this, you know we Tanishq says that ARG is 99.99% gold. Okay, but we trust Tanishq, we trust Tata, but still that's just a trust based on the number of years you were not sure about that. But blockchain can do that. Blockchain can tell you where the gold came from, who validated the gold, who made sure that it is 99.99% done, and then you can do the verification. You just have to go to the internet, you can do the verification, you can trace it back. But right now what is happening is just that you have given a certificate or something like that, and you have to trust that certificate. But there is a centralized organization backing that certificate. If that organization falters or there is a fraud detected, then everything is fraud. That's the whole problem. Moving on. uh, okay, I'm going to skip this. Yeah, digital identity. Yeah, so there are a lot of times when we feel like in India the identity is uh, tampered, we manipulate documents. So all these things have been discovered in the past, which can be fixed with blockchain. So for example, let's say you are all college students, you are receiving a degree. Let's put those degrees on a blockchain, so that when you go to a company, the company can just put in that link into the blockchain network and see that this degree is valid or not. So the whole background verification process can be smooth, fast, and reliable with the help of blockchain. And this is just one thing. Passports. You have fake passports. We see that we don't have fake passports. They are fake passports. We have fake residential ownership documents. We have fake birth certificates. You will find fake birth certificates very common in sports because they want to hide their ages. We have wedding certificates. We have other things which can be altered. It can be anything. Work experience can be also altered. People generally trust it and then they move on. We have done a lot of hiring in an organization when we see that there's a discrepancy of 1 month or 2 months, which we kind of uh, ignore. But if there is a discrepancy of 1 year, then we can't do that. We have to make sure that this is fraud. Okay, moving on. This is something which is combining two unique sectors, which is basically blockchain for IoT. And so I hope you all know about IoT. So like for example, very very new use case is basically Google Home. Google meaning, if you use, then that's IoT device which controls your devices. You just speak over your phone, or you just say okay Google and do this or do that, and then there is a device which is acting on the information. Okay, IoT is basically Internet of Things, where we're connecting things that are around, like fridge, washing machine, light, fan, car. Like I think you must have also seen Tesla, how Tesla is doing it. Tesla is integrating in autopilot. So all these things are basically Internet of Things, and we are putting that on blockchain. How blockchain helps that is basically it keeps a track of all these things so that the data is not going to the centralized organization. For example, you are monitoring a farm and then the farm is owned by somebody else and there are multiple stakeholders and they want to see that the farm, how's the farm performing. And if the reporting is done on blockchain, then anybody can see that. Otherwise, they will have to trust the person, the single person who's creating the report, right? So the reporting becomes very simplified, and then you can actually see how the reporting is done and if it's done in a transparent manner or not. And if I've actually also worked in the solar industries. In solar industry, people do EPC projects. There also there's a reporting problem. So, like for example, I am an investor. I invested 10 crore rupees in one megawatt plant in Rajasthan, and I'm getting a return from the government on sending or supplying electricity to the government. And I want to see that how the plant is performing, but I'm sitting in Delhi and the plant is in Rajasthan. Either I have to employ somebody there to sit there, or probably two people, and then they have to be educated enough to calculate everything and tell me if there is a problem, or I can implement blockchain and with the help of IoT, and I can just get the report on my device sitting in Delhi. So that saves a lot of operation costs, a lot of money, and a lot of stress from an investor perspective. This is just one use case. Generally, people invest almost 50 crores or 100 crores in these kind of plants, and they want the real-time reporting.
Sir,
okay.
I'm so sorry for intervening in between. Just wanted to keep a little reminder on the clock, as we have some interesting questions also there in the chat box. So I would like to take up 10 minutes for that Q&A.
Finishing off in 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. I'll cover one more. I'll skip the challenges. I'll just cover one more concept, which is called decentralized autonomous organization. See, here we all talked about blockchain as individuals, networks of individuals. But blockchain can also be a network of organizations. So Facebook also tried to launch a decentralized autonomous organization. It's called Libra, and what they did was, it was basically a global payment network. So imagine you can send money via Facebook, and the fees is also very less. The problem is that there is a very high fees. In India, we receive payments. We receive a lot of money coming from NRIs living outside. They send money to India, and then that actually comes up to a healthy sum for our revenues. But a lot of money is lost in between the transaction, in the transaction costs. Blockchain can reduce the transaction cost, and that's a big problem. So there are so many migrants, like African migrants have gone to US, Indian have gone to Canada, Europe, US, and then they're sending money to their homeland. And then what they do is they end up paying fees anywhere between 5 to 10% of the fees. And imagine if the money is in billions, how much fees we are losing every year. This can be all changed. And then if I talk about from a private organization, then Facebook tried to make money out of it, and they're still trying to do that. So what they thought was, let's do a international payment gateway where you can send money from one person to other instantaneously, and the commission is also less. And that's called Libra, and that's an example for decentralized autonomous organization. What they did was, they created a decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, where they brought in MasterCard, Visa, all these payment gateways, all these people who are also in compliance. They created the whole payment infrastructure, and then every party became a part of this organization. So they all have their voting rights, and then they launched this payment gateway. So this is called a decentralized autonomous organization, where instead of people in the network, you have organizations in the network. A blockchain which has organizations. Okay, that's called DAO. I'll actually now stop here and take the Q&As.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for explaining the blockchain in a very simplified manner to all of us. And I'm sure along with me, many of us would have cleared our doubts related to the technology. But yes, I could see some very interesting questions questions also popped up in the chat box. So with your permission, I'd like to take up the questions from the students. I'll start with the basic question from Soumya, and wherein she wants to understand that, sir, is India really ready for blockchain technology to be introduced?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, if I talk about fintech, then India has the most sophisticated fintech platforms, which is UPI. If I talk about UPI, if you go to outside, people are talking about UPI. Europe is talking about UPI. So India is actually ready. And to be very honest, the whole power of Indian economy is software. We are powering the software for the world, right? So, and Chinese, as we say, Chinese is the manufacturing plant of the world. We are software development house of the world. So we should actually embrace blockchain, and we are ready. And if I talk about blockchain companies also, if I talk about our company also, we are a Liechtenstein based, a Swiss company, but the development is happening in India. Okay. So India is definitely ready for blockchain.
Thank you, sir. I hope, Soumya, you've got the answer, and it feels really proud to understand that, yes, India is the software hub for rest of the world. So there is a next question from Ankit, and he wants to understand that, is there any transaction limit through blockchain, and how much will be charged for the transaction?
The amount is not limited, but the fees is all dependent upon the network, how the network is, how many people are validating it. So if more validators are active on the network, at that point when you're doing the transaction, then the fees will be lower. But if there are less people, the fees will be higher. So this is how it works. It's completely transparent, so you will know that. Yeah. And also, if you pay more fees, your transaction gets done faster. So for example, if you pay more fees, your transaction is faster. If you pay less fees, and you can control it. So every user can control this.
All right, so I think control lies with the user.
Yes.
With this, sir, I move to the next question, and this is from Shubham Ghosh. And he wants to understand that, is there any particular app or website to use blockchain service? Because as per his knowledge, only cryptocurrency transactions are being done via blockchain. Otherwise, banks are probably using Nostro Vostra for foreign transactions.
Could you repeat the question? Is the question
So he
around
wanted to,
international payments?
so yes, he basically wants to understand that, is there any particular app or website to use blockchain service?
There are multiple actually. The moment you start writing blockchain in blockchain service, you will find n number of services. And that's all user discretion. I will not name anything.
All right. Okay. So you can definitely find out, and as per your own discretion, you may select the app or the website. So Ronak has another question in which he's saying that blockchain the uses private key, and if the key is lost, then there is nothing to do about it. So what could be done to make it more efficient and safe?
Yeah, that's a very good question actually. I'm definitely sure that Ronak reads about blockchain Bitcoin. There are other wallets being invented where this key can be retrieved with the help of bio ID, like for example, my facial